I think that Cade Cunningham is the best pick and roll passer in the NBA. What I think about Cade is just the versatility of all of the passes that he has. He can make every single pick and roll pass.
When the shooting regresses, sees positive regression, it's like he's a lock all-star, but are we talking all NBA? Are we talking second team? Like, how high is the ceiling for this guy?
The Pistons, to me, they are a case study in what happens when you double down on your strengths. You double down on your strengths and you play to the strengths of your roster. And I love that they're doing that.
To sort of bring this full circle, all of this encapsulates that, like, the Pistons know what they're doing. They know the vision of their own team, and everything is sort of driving towards that.
This is Hot Hand Theory. This is a podcast where we talk about the NBA and break things down from an analytical perspective. I'm your co-host XJ. As always, I'm joined by my brilliant co-host Geoff. And Geoff, we are talking about the Detroit Pistons today, one of the hottest teams in the NBA. I'm so excited to talk about this team. I've been looking forward to talking about this team because obviously, you know, for anybody who's listened to this pod, they know that I'm a big Cade Cunningham guy. I love Cade a lot. One of my favorite players to watch in the league, and we'll definitely talk about him. And we'll talk about a couple of other guys that are really, really important to everything that the Pistons are doing. But first, we have to kind of zoom out and look at what they're doing from a macro perspective, which I think is really cool, innovative, interesting, conceptually, philosophically, what they're doing and their approach, given their personnel. And I think it's just a really good conversation. The Pistons, to me, and you and I talked a little bit about this before we jumped on, so I know you agree with this. They are a case study in what happens when you double down on your strengths. Like, You double down on your strengths and you play to the strengths of your roster. And I love that they're doing that. You could look at their roster build and say, oh, you know, they have all of these weaknesses. They have two quality centers. How do you make those two guys work together? They have a wing who can't shoot, and that's still one of their best players. How do you make that work? That seems like an extreme weakness or a limitation, but they found a way to make it so that they can make those things a strength rather than a weakness. And if you listen to the show occasionally, you might think, XJ loves 5 shooters. He loves 5 out. That is true. I do. That's totally true. But that doesn't mean I hate anything that's not 5 out. And Geoff, we've had this discussion before where we discussed, like, all things equal, is it better to have a 4+1, so 4 shooters and 1 non-shooting rim threat, or a 3+1, so 3 shooters and 2 non-shooting rim threats? And while obviously, like I said, I would prefer 5 shooters as long as, you know, all things are equal there, I'd strongly prefer a 3+1 over a 3+2 over a 4+1, because a lot of teams do these half measures where they're like, okay, we're going to, we know spacing is important in the modern NBA, and so we're going to put a shooter on the court because we have to, but we really don't have the personnel to really go 5 out. So we're kind of doing this mid ground between these two options. Just double down, just play to who you have. The Pistons said, forget all that. We're going to play some lineups. Maybe when Tobias Harris is out, we're going to play a ton of Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren, and Asar Thompson. We're going to play them all out there together. Obviously, Isaiah Stewart can shoot, and that's something that we should talk about as well. But I just think that that's so great because you get your competitive advantage when your team is playing to its strengths, and such that you overwhelm your opponents in one area to the point where they now have to start adjusting to how you play to deal with your strengths, as opposed to being able to play to their strengths. And so that's such a major factor in the Pistons' early success. And I think it's going to hold up because of the level of talent they have, the strength that they have, and the roster construction really, really facilitates it well in the way that JB has coached them. I think it's great. So I'm super excited to talk about the Pistons. Aside from giving that kind of general overview on what they try to do from a philosophical standpoint, where do you want to start with diving into the details on the Detroit Pistons, Geoff?
That is where I want to start. Pistons fans who are listening to us for the first time are about to find out why we have a show together, because I was sure you were going to swing it to me before you did your intro, and this is exactly where I was going to start. And this is so exciting because the Pistons almost by themselves put to bed this silly narrative that the NBA is boring because it's monotonous. And, oh, you have all these teams that just play exactly the same. They're all just like trying to drive and spray. And I'm not saying that like Cade Cunningham isn't creating advantages and then trying to find 3-point shooters. He is. But the Pistons are awesome in a way that's totally different than a team like the Knicks or the Cavs in the East. Like, they do it their own way. And I thought I thought the way you stated it was so perfect. Like, this is a front office and a coaching staff that has self-awareness and in lockstep is honing in on the strengths of its rosters and trying to leverage those strengths rather than just play like everybody else and be a bad version of other teams. They could be a 4+1 or even like a fake 5+0 if they really wanted to, but they would be one of the worst in the league at that. Why would they do that just because everybody else is doing it? No, they are really, really good at certain things, and they're just doubling down on those things. And I want to get in, we should really get into what we're talking about when we talk about what their strengths are. Their strengths are defense and their size, and both of those things correlate with one player who we'll get into here in a second. But I just want to share some data for, I'm sure there are Pistons fans who are going to come in here and this is going to be intuitive to them, but I want to be able to package it in a way that like you guys would be like, yeah, like I knew this, but 8.3% of the Pistons field goal attempts are putbacks. That's highest in the league. And they generate fouls on 23% of those putbacks. Crazy. Absolutely nuts. Like, they're just dominating the offensive glass. Despite being 19th in overall touches, they're first in the NBA in paint touches and third in turnover percentage on paint touches. And they create the third most free throw attempts off of paint touches. They lead the NBA in blocks. They are just absolutely dominating the paint on both ends of the court. And that's why if you zoom out and you look 17th in pace, 25th in true shooting percentage, a middle of the road overall offense, you really have to zoom in to understand why this team is great. Third in offensive rebound percentage. Doesn't matter that they're not making a lot of threes. They retain a lot of their possessions. And as I just alluded to, when they're in the paint, they're destroying other teams. They're fifth in defensive rating. They are a great defense, and that's what they're leaning into. And unlike a team that we talked about on Monday, the Knicks, we said about the Knicks, they need a great offense and a requisite defense. They need just to meet the baseline of a defense to pair with their all-time great offense. The Pistons can do the other thing. They can have an amazing defense and just enough offense to get by, and leaning into things like paint touches, offensive rebounds. It's helping them have raise the floor of their offense to pair with their great defense. I absolutely love their strategy. I think it's brilliant the way they've leaned into the strengths of their roster, and I love how you put it.
Yeah, I love the corresponding data. The only data point I would add, which I think is really cool and interesting to supplement what you were saying, is that the Pistons are top 6 in percentage of the shots that they take coming at the rim. They're also top 3 in percentage of the shots they take in the short mid-range. There's no other team in the top 10 in both. In fact, there's no other team in the top 15 in both. Like, it's actually insane. It's completely insane that they are doing that. And this is data per Clean the Glass. So I think you can boil down their philosophy to basically, let's get as many of our shots as we can, as close to the basket as we possibly can. It seems pretty simple. And it seems like it would make sense because a lot of the highest percentage shots are closest to the basket. But in practice, it's difficult. And the engine that allows them to be able to do that, there's a couple of guys, obviously the main one being Cade Cunningham, because everything that they do offensively flows through Cade Cunningham screen and rolls and his passing. And I really want to talk about Cade, but I'm sure that you'll talk a lot about Cade, and so I'll piggyback off of you. But I want to talk about Jalen Duren because Jalen Duren is an absolute monster. He was underrated last season. I think he was an excellent offensive player, had a huge impact for the Pistons, and didn't necessarily get as much of the accolades and credit as was necessarily deserved last season. He's gotten better. There's just no way around it. He's gotten better. He's more impactful. He's good at so many things that facilitate allowing this to happen. And to me, Cade is critically important, but Duren is almost just as important. And I think that a lot of more casual NBA fans wouldn't necessarily recognize that. what I love about Duren is a few things. One, he's definitely one of the best screeners in the league. He's so hard to get around, and he's so strong and powerful. So when he screens, it really affects the defender. And that defender, once you're on Cade's hip trying to get over a screen, now you're in big trouble. You're going to always have to bring a third defender involved to deal with the Cade and Duren pick and roll. And that's going to put you at a major disadvantage when you have a passer as good as Cade is in that situation. And then the other thing about Duren is that he just aggressively attacks the basket at all times. And you'll see it's crazy how Cade and Duren play together. Duren is always rolling towards the basket or just running towards the basket. If sometimes he's the trailing big, and he's just running towards the basket, and Cade will just feed him. And it's kind of like LeBron-esque in a less dexterous style, but just like a more muscular style of just like, yeah, you're not going to kind of get in the way of this guy. He's going to get past you or dunk on you or finish. And he's always attacking the basket. Cade's always looking for him. And so they just have this flow where Duren is not only powerful, strong, big, can finish with either hand with dunks and layups, and also hook shots at times, but he also has some nimbleness. He can dribble a little bit. He can weave in between traffic. He can avoid charges. He can get to the basket. He can do big to big passing, which we saw him do all last season, especially when I say big to big. I mean, one big being Duren, the other big being Asar Thompson, which is funny to call him a big, but that's how they play. And when it's Isaiah Stewart is often popping and plays more like a wing in some cases if he's not crashing the boards. So Duren has all of these sort of like skills that you wouldn't really be expecting from him. And he's even getting better as a short roll decision maker and passer already this season. And so you add all of that together, put Cade and Duren together and incorporate that with the philosophy of the Detroit Pistons. It's not really surprising that they're having this much success early in the season.
Not surprising at all. And you mentioned Duren and how he's just bulldozing to the rim. So he's up to 25 points per 75 possessions, same monster efficiency that he had last season, but he's doubled his free throw rate from last season, doubled it. And he's now shooting 86% from the line. Absolute monster. All the lineup data, although it's still, early, it's still a small sample, supports the fact that like he has been integral to this team's success. When Jalen Duren and Cade Cunningham play together, they are tied for the fourth best defense in the NBA and have the second best offense in the NBA in 142 minutes already. That's not like a guarantee sample size, but that's pretty big for only playing 8 games or 7, 8. Is it up to 9? Sorry. Despite playing less than 10% of the season or 10% of the season, they're scoring 122 points per 100 possessions and just allowing 111 points per 100 possessions. Now you move Cade, just look at Duren. Don't even tie Cade to him. Those numbers get better, which is crazy. Like Duren has just been so essential to this team for all the reasons that you stated. And you talked about him being underrated last season. He was in the 87th percentile in offensive EPM. His impact was amazing last season, and I just think he's gotten so much better. And now he's anchoring the defense, which is the more important side of the ball for them, or the side where they're winning games more consistently. This has been just utterly remarkable by him, and the fact that he's able to play big minutes for this team, like he is just absolutely anchoring this team right now. And when you look at like the foundation of this team, when you try to sum up the things this team is leaning into, its biggest strengths, they're all encapsulated by what Duren's biggest strengths are. It's almost like they realized as we transition this conversation to Cade Cunningham that they were like, Cade is so skilled and so good. We don't need to maximize the space around him. He will be himself in almost any conditions. We can lean into the strengths and I don't artificially sounds bad, but what I mean is like elevate Duren's impact, because he needs you to play a specific way to get the max impact from him. Whereas Cade, you can get max impact playing a number of ways. Now all of a sudden you're maximizing your two most important players at the same time, and they're doing it in different ways, so there's no redundancy. They're like a very, very oddly synergistic duo.
Yeah, I speaking of duos, like it's a very real possibility to me, but that by the end of the season, Cade and Duren is pushing Jokic and Murray as like the best duo, guard, big duo in the league. Like I think that that's a realistic possibility. Depends on further development, but like they work so well together. Their skill sets work so well together. Like you mentioned, no redundancy at all. It's really amazing. And I have a big, I mean, that was a big claim. I have a big claim on Cade. So first, I want to say just like a couple of things about Cade, because like, again, one of my favorite players in the league to watch. This guy cannot shoot right now. I mean, he's had a couple games where he shot well from three, and that's good, but that's going to turn around, obviously. It's early in the season. He's missing shots. The fact that he is so impactful while missing shots is insane, and the fact that he is doing it with, of course, with his rim pressure, his ability to get downhill, but this guy is an insane passer. I don't think it's like recognized, especially out of the pick and roll. And my claim, I think that this may be the case. I think that Cade Cunningham is the best pick and roll passer in the NBA. And I think that there's only a couple of other options, really. Like, I mean, you have Luka Doncic, which is the main one that I would say, you know, that's probably the biggest competitor. And then, you know, you have LaMelo. To me, you have Trae Young. But I really feel like those are the four. I don't think I think those are the four. That's the tier. And there's nobody else there. And what I think about Cade is just the versatility of all of the passes that he has. He can make every single pick and roll pass so flawlessly. Pocket pass, bounce pass, off of one hand lob pass that he does all the time to Duren and to other guys, to Asar as well. And his decision making is so quick, and the passes are so crisp. It's just like, obviously Pistons fans watch Cade all the time, so they know this, but it's so crisp. It's not like, oh, you know, he got the ball there. It's like, it's exactly where it needs to be, exactly on time, almost every single time. Guys don't pass like that. And it's really amazing watching him put the ball there so consistently. And so, yeah, to me, that's the biggest thing, is that it just works because those guys' skill sets just play off of each other so perfectly.
Yeah, Cade, I mean, that's sort of where I want to go with that, is that like Cade is one of the few players who you could put in this sort of like, hey, we're leaning into these things that work, but they only work if we have a guy who can raise the floor of the offense by himself. And Cade is like one of the few who would be capable of that. And I would argue what's most encouraging about his start to the season is that all of the areas that he showed improvement in are like lower variance, more certain areas to like hold true across smaller sample sizes. And the areas where he struggled, mid-range shooting, three-point shooting, these are more volatile areas and more likely to regress to the mean. So you have this guy who has made these improvements that are likely to hold true. And then when the shooting regresses, sees positive regression, it's like he's a lock all-star, but are we talking all-NBA? Are we talking second team? Like, how high is the ceiling for this guy? He's still so young. He can defend, which, like, you think about other of the point guards in the East who he's competing with for best lead initiator for a team. Obviously, you know, Halliburton's hurt, but Halliburton would have been up there. Jalen Brunson, Donovan Mitchell. Cade Cunningham's by far the best defender of any of those guys. He's consistently impacting the game on that end of the court. You mix in him making a little bit of an offensive leap to approach these other guys in terms of offensive impact. He has a claim. He very well could, by the end of the season, have a claim for the best guard in the East.
He could, and that's a great case for it. I think, yeah, and like I said, to me, he's already the best pick and roll passer of them all. So, and especially in the Eastern Conference, like obviously I love Halliburton as a passer, but as a pick and roll passer, I don't even think it's close between he and Halliburton. Halliburton's better passer in other ways. And I just love how everything kind of flows through. Like they do so many things. The Pistons run so many things to be able to generate Cade pick and rolls. Like it's not just like, you know, dribble up, Cade run screen and roll with Jalen Duren over and over and over, rinse, wash, repeat. Like they do that, but like there's tons of actions where they'll have a shooter in the weak side corner, and then they're using Duncan Robinson in a really cool way. And it's something that about how Duncan Robinson has been used in the past in Miami, where they just use his gravitational pull is insane. So you just put him anywhere around the court, you make him move, you're pulling guys with you everywhere. It disrupts the defense just having him run through it. And so they'll time his cuts really perfectly, swing the ball to Cade, and then have a pick and roll run with Jalen Duren that is like flows perfectly with that activity, and such that it gets tons of lobs, easy dunks, easy putbacks if there's a missed shot for Jalen Duren all the time. Or you get Cade just coming downhill and he'll just finish layup. So, and then I really, really love when they have Stewart and Jalen Duren out there together. They'll run double screens or drag screens, or they'll run double screens where Stewart will pop out. And by the way, I got to say this. I'm so glad Isaiah Stewart has relearned how to shoot. Like I don't know what happened to him last season. If you're a Pistons fan and you have the answer and you know what happened to Isaiah Stewart last season, please put that in the comments below, because Isaiah Stewart was, a 22-year-old strong two-way rebounder approaching his physical prime, who had come off a season where he shot 39% from three on a respectable like 4.5 3-point attempts per 75. And I was so high on him. I'm like, this guy's going to go somewhere and be a starting center and be a stretch five to go with a guy like Giannis, and it's going to be a problem. It's just going to be a problem. And then suddenly he just stopped shooting. Like not only did he not make shots, he stopped shooting them. And it was very confusing to me. I'm like, this is a bizarre trajectory to suddenly go backwards and stop shooting. He's back shooting again, and he's making threes, and he's shooting them at an even higher volume. So I'm so happy to see him putting it up again, because it allows you to run these double big options and not completely crater your spacing, although spacing's not the most important thing to them, because Cade Cunningham can operate in the phone booth and make all the passes off of one dribble and have a low power dribble underneath outstretched hands trying to strip him all the time. And so he can operate in that space, in that paradigm extremely well. And he's so big and strong that it works for him as well. So it's like not even a big disadvantage for Cade to operate in poor spacing environments necessarily. But then you have Isaiah Stewart, and you're like, actually, the spacing environment's not even that bad, because he can pop out and he's a threat, especially if he's going to be aggressive. So it allows them to do so much with those double big options. It really enhances Cade's strengths, Duren's strengths, and Isaiah Stewart as well, because they can both crash the boards, especially on the offensive end. That's why we see them being a top 3 offensive rebounding team in the NBA. So it's just so cool, everything that they're doing.
Yeah, it sort of reminds me of those mid 2010 Cavs teams when Love and Tristan Thompson would screen for Kyrie or for LeBron, and Love would pop and Tristan would dive. And you could just, I mean, they got to a point by 2017, Kyrie's last year in Cleveland, where it was robotic for them. Like Love would pop and Tristan would dive, and it was, you had J.R. Smith and another shooter in each corner, and they had 4 options. It was like Kyrie or LeBron would get a layup, Tristan would get the lob, Kevin Love would pop above. Like they had every option, and they would just figure out which way the defense was making a mistake, and they would exploit it. The Pistons can keep building around this core and get to a point where they're running actions like that. You mentioned Duncan Robinson. He's averaging a career low in 3-point attempts per 75. That's just going to happen on this team. But the thing is that what he brings to them is so valuable, because it's like so unique for their team, that as you mentioned, his gravitational pull, he's just running around. I'm not going to say he doesn't need to shoot. He needs to shoot when he can, because 3 points is a lot in the NBA. But like, it's just going to be harder in the NBA when he's really the only off-ball threat and he's running around. Defenses are going to pay attention. But make no mistake, that attention is valuable, because it lets the Pistons score more effectively inside the arc. He's providing impact without touching the ball. That's so valuable. It's something we talk about here at High Hand Theory all the time. There's only one ball. You just can't fill your team with guys who can only help you when the ball is in their hands. You need guys simultaneously bringing additive impact. That's something Duncan Robinson does a lot. It's something Isaiah Stewart does positionally when he's shooting well. And to sort of close this off with another thing you brought up, I want to kind of make fun of myself here. When the Pistons drafted Ron Holland, I was like very, 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 I admonished them very hard. And not because I didn't think Ron Holland was good or could be good, but it was just like, you already have one of those. Like, we have it at home. Why do we need another one of those? And it never occurred to me, and props to you, XJ, for sort of opening my eyes to this. It never occurred to me that, like, once they go down this road, it's actually just better to have two of them than it is to have one of them, because if they're on the court together, like, the lack of spacing doesn't hurt you as much as it would in other situations. So, like, if Ron Holland was on the Knicks, for example, and he was in all these lineups that could be good spacing lineups, but he was the one non-spacer, specifically his shooting would be so detrimental to those lineups that he would be unplayable. They'd have to play shooters because that's how they have to play. His lack of shooting right now is not hurting the Pistons because it's like they already have non-shooters in other places. So Ron Holland is allowed to grow. He can still become a fine shooter, but he's doing it through reps on the court. It's the best possible situation for a guy like him, for a guy like Ausar Thompson, to grow in these roles and to not be a detriment, or excuse me, for their biggest weaknesses to not be as detrimental to the team. I think it's great. I think to sort of bring this full circle, all of this encapsulates that, like, the Pistons know what they're doing. They know the vision of their own team, and everything is sort of driving towards that.
That was a great explanation on the Ron Holland thing, like, and kind of helping to visualize some of the trade-offs there that happen when you're playing in a particular style, let's say with more shooters on the court, and how that's more damaging to you when you're already playing with fewer shooters on the court. I love that visual. And it's almost to me like, it's like, some possessions for the Pistons can look like a Hail Mary in the NFL, and it's just like all the guys are just around the rim, and it's like the ball's coming, and it's like, yeah, one of us is going to get it here. I don't know. It's just a bunch of us down here. And if you think about it, if we have Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart, Ausar Thompson, and sometimes Ron Holland, it's like, we're probably going to be the ones to get it, you know? And so that really works out for them. I want to close out, like, from my perspective here, just saying, like I said, I love the Pistons. I think they're really, like, close. I think they're really close. I think they're one key piece from being like a true blue contender in the East. And I think they need, this is hard to say because these guys don't really exist, but I think they would really benefit from like a Tari Eason type, a guy who doesn't change the way that they play, but does still add some of that spacing value, because I think Isaiah Stewart does that for his position. And then you have Tari Eason, one of the few guys in the league who does that for his position. And so you have those like kind of combo spacers, bruisers, and you add one more in the mix like that. And then you can play the versatility of lineups that you can throw out there becomes even more elaborate and even more hard to deal with. And you have even tons of different situations where you can even sometimes, in a crazy way, go 5 out and still have one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the league. And so I think they need a guy like that in terms of the quote unquote worst guy that they could get that could make them a true title contender. But I also still think they're going to be a problem for anybody to deal with in the Eastern Conference, and just not going to be easy for anyone to get past, including the Cavs, including the Knicks, including the Magic if they ever get their stuff turned around. So yeah, that's where I'll end on the Pistons. You have any last thoughts?
I guess I just want to say that you bring up Tari Eason as like the potential prototype. I used him as an example of like a non-shooter and how the system is helping him grow. I think Ron Holland can just become Tari Eason. Like, he's 20. His free throw, it's still early, but like, obviously it's early with the sample size, but like free throws jumped from 75 to 87. 75 is already like, that's not like a busted shot. Like, I don't mean to dump on Ausar Thompson, but I think even the most bullish on Ausar Thompson, who's like, he's an awesome defender. He's got great instincts. Like, the Thompson twins are amazing. They're an amazing case study in how to be valuable in today's NBA without being able to shoot as a wing, because it's so hard. But like, I don't see a world where he just becomes a knockdown shooter. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. I see that outcome for Ron Holland. I like his shot form, and he's 6'8". He's a bull at the point of attack. Like he can be a great defender. He's got plenty of time. Not saying that they wouldn't be helped because the beautiful thing about these additive players like Tari Eason is you can't have too many of them. So it wouldn't hurt to like try to target one of those and bring one in. But I think long term the upside is there for Ron Holland, and I'm excited to see him grow. Like we said, in this role where he's going to be allowed to grow, and it's not like JB Bickerstaff's like, sorry, dude, I can't play you 15 minutes a game. Your shooting right now is just too detrimental. They don't really have to worry about that. He can just be out there and get reps and grow more confident as a shooter in this spot. I think if he was going to thrive anywhere, it would be in Detroit in this system. So maybe I'll end up looking dumb, but I think he can be that guy.
That's a very interesting take. I think we both had some interesting takes, but I love this breakdown. So Pistons fans, if you're still listening at this point and this is your first time listening, go ahead and subscribe. We cover teams in depth like this every single week, and we watch them deeply. As you can tell, we pour over the data, we pour over the film, and we'd love to have you in our community. Drop a comment. We respond to every single comment that ever appears on this YouTube channel, so as well as on Spotify and in other places. So yeah, appreciate you joining us for this episode. And for Geoff, I'm XJ, and this has been Hot Hand Theory.